You might have to dub it later, huh?
Yeah.
I can make adjustments. It's fine. So thank you so much for coming today. And Steve has another engagement, so we're going to kind of get to him first. But I just want to say thanks for being here. As I promised in our last coffee, that we were going to try to do some additional educational pieces so that when you left each one of our coffees, you had something that you could take with you, and in addition to our regular networking. So today, there is a whole host of new things that are coming out. We have a grant that is through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation that ends today. So many of you might be eligible for that. But we also have PPP loans coming out. So I'm going to start today, and we want to hear from Steve Peacock. He is with Huron Valley State Bank, and he's going to tell us a little bit about this new round, because this might be of interest to you for your payroll. So I'm going to let you take it away, okay?
All right, good. What I'll do is I'll kind of do a general overview of the program, and then I'll open it up for questions, any specific questions you have. There's a lot that goes with these. It's very technical programs that they've done. So if I don't have an answer, I'll try and get it for you later on. But you know, in order to simplify it, they publish 120 pages of rules and everything that you have to go through. So it's you know, it's a typical government program. So the CARES Act that was approved at the end of December, there was a number of items in it. PPP was one of them, both for a first draw PPP and a second draw PPP loans. And then also there was a portion that was the easing of the forgiveness for loans under 150,000, which we were pushing for a long time. They finally did that. And then there's also the other part that I'll go to those other ones in more detail, but the other one too is that when they did the initial PPP or the CARES Act, they actually paid anybody that had a guaranteed SBA guaranteed loan, ones we call 7As. They made the payments for, I think, up to 6 months. They did reenact that also, so they'll start making those payments again. I don't remember how long, if they're going total of 6 months, but they are for a period of time. They will be making companies SBA payments on their loans. So if you had a guaranteed loan program, you get 6 months of not making payments. I did see also, there was some question whether that would be taxable to the individual borrower. It does look like they came out with a ruling just maybe yesterday that is going to exempt that from being income to the for tax reasons to the borrower. So that's a good thing. So once that was all approved, everything had to go to the Treasury and SBA to kind of put guidelines around the PPP program and the forgiveness. Once they did that, then they put out new applications, and they started accepting the applications for the second draw PPP, as well as the first time if you hadn't got one before. Back, it was a week ago Monday for micro lenders, minority lenders, and what they call economic development corporations. And then as of last Friday, they opened it up to banks under 1 billion, which was our size bank. So we've been putting in these SBA second draw and first draw PPPs since last Friday. As of yesterday, I think we had roughly 60 applications in. We had submitted close to 50, and we had 20 to 30 approvals. So that was pretty good. To give you some flavor, the first round we did 247 loans for about $27 million, which actually helped about 3,500 employees when you factor it down to you know, what the employees of each company. This time will probably be, you know, when everything's said and done, I think we'll probably end up doing between 75 and 100 of these applications, and probably somewhere in the 10 to $15 million because there are some more restrictions. So with the new forms and the guidance, they also provided a new portal for the banks to submit the applications once you submit them to us. It is a much more user-friendly portal than the other one, but they did change a couple things. Before, when we entered in the application, we got an instantaneous approval. Now it's going to be between 24 and 48 hours on average to get approvals. They are checking certain things, so we have actually gotten 2 rejections. One was for bankruptcy and one was for, it said it was a dormant company. There are some flaws with it because the dormant company wasn't dormant, so, and the SBA has recognized this, so we anticipate that that'll come back. But they do check certain things. They also are more stringent on franchises this time. There is a list of franchises that are approved by the SBA. If your franchise is not approved by the SBA, you will not get the PPP loan. So there's a list of them out there. Most of the franchisors know if they're on the SBA list or not. So if you have any question, I would go to your franchisor first and ask, are we approved by the SBA to do loans? So they should know that. If not, we have a catalog, we can look it up, or your bank can look it up. Like I said, there are a few bugs with it, like anything. The SBA, I do have to say, has been wonderful through this whole process. I mean, putting together this magnitude of a product that's never been done before, they've done a good job. There's been some hiccups along the way, but they've done a great job. So the first draw PPP loans is relatively the same as before. There's not a lot of changes from those guidelines. There is a new application that has to be completed, so you can't use any of the old apps. You have to use all the new ones. And also, the other thing too that we found is on every government form, there's always an expiration date. Most of those have passed, but that doesn't matter. It's just kind of a thing that they have to put on, they don't really look at. So we've gotten a lot of questions saying, hey, this form is expired, can I use it? You can use it, but just make sure that you have the most up-to-date form, and the banks will get you those. Second draw is the one that I'm sure most people have an interest in. If you already have your first PPP loan, whether it's forgiven or not, you can still apply. They did put some limits to this that made it a little different. There's nothing over $2 million. You can't go over $2 million this time. And they put that in because they want the funds to last longer. And we do anticipate that these funds probably will not run out. But so nothing over $2 million, which helps. You have to have 300 or less employees. Before it was 500. And then you also have to show that the main part is you have to show a 25% decline in any quarter in 2020 compared to the previous 2019. What we're requiring on our part is a income statement or a P&L from any quarter in 2020 with a comparable one in 19 that shows the gross revenues and everything else, but that proves that you've had a decline of 25% or the least. So most people are able to, a lot of people are able to qualify, some aren't. The other part though that they put in there, we don't know what it means or how they're going to enforce it, but it says also you have to prove economic need. So again, we don't know how they'll enforce it or what they'll look at, but I think the underlying tone from what we can interpret is, if you had one bad quarter, but you had a record year in 2020, and for some reason they find that out, you might not get forgiven. But again, it's how do they find out what they do? We just don't know how that's going to happen. As a lot of this stuff is a very fluid program, so it changes as we go along, but we'll figure that out, or they'll tell us how to figure that out. Improvements to this program is anybody with a NACIS code that starts with a 72, which is hospitality, which are restaurants, hotels, a couple other things, and how you can tell what your NACIS code is on your tax return. If you file a separate tax return for your company, there is a NACIS code on that front page that your CPA puts in, and you can tell what that is. If you think you're something different, then you can look at that. But again, I think what they're going to do is they're going to fall back on that tax return, because that's what you file with them every year, and that's what they have. But if you are a 72 NACIS code, you get to take your average monthly payroll times 3.5 versus everybody else that's doing it to 2.5. So they wanted to get more money to the people that were hurting the most, which are the restaurants and the hospitality industry. The other good part about the second draw is if you choose to use your 2019 numbers and you're submitting to the same bank that you did your first draw with, you don't have to send all that information again. So it just makes it a lot easier. So you can just plug in your average payroll from the first draw and you should be ready to go. If you decide you want to use 2020 numbers, then you're going to have to supply all that same information. So you'll have to supply payroll information per employee to back it up. You'll have to supply all of your 941s and your 940 for 2020. And you'll have to supply what the statute actually says is you will have to supply a filed 2020 tax return. Or if you don't, you'd have to at least supply a profit and loss or income statement for 2020 that supports the payroll number that you're talking about. So eventually, to get forgiveness, you're going to have the filed tax return, but that'll be quite a bit down the road, so that shouldn't be a problem. What we found is that 99% of all of our people, when we talk to them about, well, do you want to use 2020 or 19, the difference in the loan amount is usually $1,000, $2,000, and they're like, well, it's not worth that. Let's use 2019, and instead of having to go through all that, plus then we don't have to recertify everything. So just makes it easier. That on the PPP on those loan amounts, that's pretty much all I can think of at this point. On the forgiveness, they did come out on Wednesday. In the CARES Act, they did ease the forgiveness process for loans under $150,000 on your first PPP loan. So it's now a one-page application, and the part you have to fill out is 1 page. There's 5 pages of instructions that go with it. It's an actual 6-page document, but you only have to fill out 1. And basically, you just have to attest that you spent the money under eligible expenses, and at least 60% was spent on payroll. As long as you attest to that, then you can send that in. They do tell you that all the information that you should have ready, if they come back and say, hey, we need some backup, we don't, whether they, for some reason, reject it and then say, we need to get that, or you need to prove it. So that's good. At this point, like most banks, right now we're just focusing on the second draw PPPs. We've kind of put forgiveness on the back burner for temporarily. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll be opening that back up and starting those process and inviting people to start submitting on those. That's about all that I can think of that are the important parts to go over. I'd be glad to open it up and answer any questions that I can, or see if I can help in any other way.
Okay, pepper away, people. So I have a question. So if you've already, you got your first draw, and and listening to I'm thinking of my husband's business, and he got his first draw, and 2020 ended up being a decent year for them. when they applied, they didn't know it was going to be a decent year, but it ended up being a decent year. It sounds like to me, if they choose to draw again, I don't think they're going to, but if they chose to draw again, it would be better for them to look at 2019 versus 2020.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, people are using the 2019 payroll numbers. And as long as you can prove that you did have at least one quarter that was 25% less in revenues than 19 and 2020, then they are eligible. You know, the other thing that you have to look at, we've had some people where they said, well, you know what, I'm going to use my 19 numbers, but for economic reasons, maybe they've cut their payroll and stuff and cut people. And, you know, you do have to be able to you do have to be able to support that loan amount with the payroll, with the eligible expenses in order to get forgiveness, or to get it all forgiven. You may get a portion of it forgiven if you have less employees. We had one company that was putting all their employees on 1099 this year versus salary, so she decided that she wasn't going to apply because she's not going to have the payroll going forward. So you have to look at not only where I was, but what we've got going in the next year. Because you do have to spend that money on eligible expenses, just like you did previously. So, you know, you got to look at a lot of different factors when you're applying for these programs. I will tell you our experience on forgiveness on the first round when we were putting them through was very good. We've had everybody pretty much at 100% forgiveness. So that's been good. And so we did a little better job, I think, than most people at the front end of it, qualifying people and going through their stuff. So we did have people change their applications because we didn't think they had done it correctly. So putting that work in up front on the first time and on this time helps us out quite a bit. And it helps the customer out. Sure. We might seem like a pain every once in a while, but as long as you can try and get it done right at the beginning, it solves a lot of problems. It heads off a lot of problems at the end. When you think, well, what the heck did I do 10 months ago, a year ago? I don't remember. And so it just makes it easier.
That's great.
What's great? It was good information. Anybody else? I feel like I have crickets. Sally, I know you want to answer questions.
Robin.
Oh, hi, Robin.
Hi, how is everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Couple things, Steve. Thank you for doing this. Very nice. Yeah. You did clarify by email. I just want to go over this once again. So for the second wave, I'm going to use my same numbers for payroll and expenses, but in the employee number, you wanted me to use my new count, not my old count.
Correct. Yep. Correct? Yeah. Typical government stuff. You're going to use some from some parts and some from others, but yeah, when you apply, you're going to use your actual number of employees at time of application.
Okay. And then just, I'm not going to hold you to this, just your opinion. We were able to bring back probably 50% of our people, not in the 8-week period, but the 16-week period. So we did use all the funds for the payroll and expenses. Does that seem like it might be a 50% forgiveness?
Your loan was under 150?
No.
It was over?
Yep.
You would, yeah, what you'll have to do is there's a more detailed form if you're over 150 and you had a reduction in payroll that they will go through and you have to figure out, again, there's two different definitions. One is number of employees and one is called FTE, full-time equivalents. You'll have to figure out all your full-time equivalents. And then there may be some percentage that is going to be reduced by. It's a little more complicated process to go through. So we would have to work through that.
Okay.
On that, you'll probably, you'll want to get your CPA involved to help run through all that. But and we can help you a little bit too on that. It's but it is a little more complicated. There is no easy answer on that one.
Right. Okay. And then the second wave would be same amount as the first wave?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, if you may want to adjust that though, if you have lesser employees, you don't, even if you qualify for a more, you can always, apply for less.
Yeah.
And that would be okay because, you'd really want to take a look at that.
Yeah.
On how you want to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. That did remind me, there was a couple changes as far as what we call the covered period, the time that you have to spend that money. And you do have up to 24 weeks to spend the money on eligible expenses. And the loans are all, where the first round, it was 2 years. Then they amended it and made them up to 5 years. They're all 5-year loans now.
And then one more question. This second one included building repairs. What does that entail?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't. I don't know the answer. I can see if I can take a look and see what it is, but I'm thinking that it's probably a pretty vague definition of what that includes. But I'll see what I can find out.
I kind of took it as maybe if you had damage if you were closed, something like that is what was covered, but.
I'm sure that's what it is. I don't remember seeing that in there, so I can't recall it.
Okay.
The other thing is that there technically is no time for you to actually apply for forgiveness. You never have to apply for forgiveness if you don't want to. However, you do have to start paying principal and interest payments basically in month 17 after you get the funds. So if you haven't applied for forgiveness, the way it's written is your covered period is 24 weeks or 6 months. And then if you have 10 months after that to apply for forgiveness. If you don't apply for it at that point, then they start making P&I payments. You have to start making P&I payments on the loan. But pretty much everybody will have applied for forgiveness within that period. So that shouldn't be an issue. And that's on both the first round and the second round.
I feel like I have a lot of questions to ask my husband. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Can you give us your contact information in the chat so that I can get that out to everyone?
Sure. Yep.
Or you want to
the
just
best
tell
way
me?
is email.
Okay.
That should do it. Yeah. And yeah, if I don't get back with you right away, we're a little inundated with a lot of stuff. It's starting to slow down a little bit, but it's kind of like trying to get a bucket full of water out of a fire hose. So we're same with the first round. It's very inundated with information, with a lot of people with questions and trying to interpret things. We want to try and help as many people as we can, but
be patient.
Be patient.
I think we can do that. I think we can do that. Well, thank you so much for presenting this morning. I know that not everyone will apply for the PPP loans, but I appreciate the fact that we have experts in our group that can speak to us about this important piece. And what I would say to you is, if you don't use a PPP loan personally, Steve's a great person for you to refer to. So Huron Valley State Bank is a huge supporter of the Highland White Lake Business Association. So when you have friends that have businesses, why not tell them about Huron Valley State Bank and the fact that they do have this second draw for the PPP loans. So we really appreciate you coming out today and talk. Well, coming out is a kind of a funny way of saying it. You know what I mean? But coming to our Zoom, opening your computer to us. And we appreciate you doing that for us today and just giving us this information, because it is really vital. I'm cautiously optimistic about 2021. And I'm hopeful that we can get past the pandemic and be successful again. So I think this is one way we do that.
So Steve, I guess that would be my question to you. We hear Amy say we're cautiously optimistic. I mean, I deal with a lot of different businesses, a lot of different entities. And I feel like there are ones who are saying, you know what, I am killing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing extremely well. Things didn't get as bad. And then I'm talking to other ones who are like, I don't know how long we're going to be able to hang on.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you seeing in our community?
Realistically, it's the restaurants and retail that are hit the hardest. The restaurants that catered or had a very robust carry-out business already, or that's all they did was carry out, was good. It's the sit-down restaurants, the bars, where liquor sales are where most of their profits are the ones that are hurting. There are contractors right now are going crazy because interest rates are low. People are buying houses. They can buy bigger houses. So, a lot of the higher end homes are going. And so, it's kind of hit and miss. We've seen some changes. If you're a supplier for the automotive, you're doing well because there was a big demand for cars. And a lot of that's being driven by, places like New York and Boston and places that have a lot of ways and bus transportation. People aren't taking those. They've started to buy cars, so all of a sudden there's a big demand for cars. And so, if you're in that industry, you're doing well. But if you're in the retail, if you're in where people have to come in, you're anticipate, you're going to have a big problem. So it's kind of hit and miss. I think things will level out in 21. We're hoping that, probably the first 6 months are going to be still, a lot of will be very iffy. We think the second half, assuming the vaccine works and assuming a lot of different things with this CARES Act, pumping more money in the economy, it should help out. But there is still a lot of uncertainty out there.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say thank you for being here, because I don't see this side of it. We're a local nonprofit that is ran through Huron Valley School, so I'm lucky enough that there's people for that for me. But to understand where some of my business partners are coming from and all that, like, I didn't understand half of what you said and all those words and terms and everything because I don't have to do it. But to see how much work and the kind of the stress and what you have to stay on top of, and it gave me a different understanding for, a lot of the small businesses that are out there. So I really appreciate, giving me the education.
Yeah, and it's a very stressful time, especially the first round when nobody knew what was going to happen. It was a pretty stressful time for everybody. So we were glad to be there to help out folks.
And I like what you said about the SBA. I think there's all kinds of blame all over being thrown at all kinds of people. And I said this to Amy the other day, we all just need to exhibit some grace. This was not in anybody's playbook. I don't think anybody had, this is our pandemic response.
Right.
And, every form of government has been, lit up, every major institution in the country, from education to government to nonprofit. you know, we all just need to take a chill pill and say, you know what? They had no playbook for this.
Right.
People are doing the best they can with what they've got.
Yep. Well, if somebody told you last year at this point that you're going to shut down the whole country, nobody would have believed them.
No.
You know, think about that. And, you know, in 12 months, what we've done.
If anyone had told me on March 12th, you know, they said, we're going to shut down the schools. And I was communicating with Amy and Sherry that we couldn't hold laughs. And they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we were blown away that we would cancel an event. Now we've canceled a year's worth of events, and it kind of feels like, huh, all right.
Yep.
I did the math yesterday for a new grant, and I was like, oh, it was significant. It's significant. And one of the questions they asked was, what have you done? Basically, what have you done to pivot? And so I started thinking through some of the things that we've done as an organization to pivot. And then I started thinking about some of the things that you've all done to pivot. And not one of them looks the same. You know, we all have done different things and stepped out of comfort zones and had to, you know, even just having to get an appointment to go into the lobby, which is something that I never would have thought I'd ever have to do it here on Valley State Bank. They are the most friendly people ever. I would just walk into Shelly's office. Hi, Shelly. How's it going? How many times have you offered my daughter candy? I mean, you know, so to say that, you know, it's been a year. So, but you're right. Well, thank you so much. I think if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and start doing our networking, and I'll let you get to
Sure.
your next meeting, Steve. Thank you again.
Thank you
for
very
being
much.
here.